Having a child can never be for the sake of that child. Someone might believe that they are having a child so that the child may experience all of the great things life has to offer, but this is always done at an expense. The expense being the negative experience the child will inevitably endure. The question then becomes, is there any expense that is worth the attainment of the great things life has to offer? The answer to this question comes down to an asymmetry. You can think of an asymmetry as something that isn't in balance with another thing. The asymmetry I am addressing is the difference between the attainment of a positive and the prevention of a negative for two different matter and energy states, one in which consciousness exists in the form of a human, and the other in which consciousness doesn't exist. We'll call such states existence and non-existence. First, let's address existence. For a consciousness in existence that can be deprived of the positives of life, the attainment of such is of importance. In other words, it's important to the consciousness that exists because it can feel the deprivation of not having the positive. The positive is a better state for that person than the state in which the person is experiencing lesser. Likewise, the prevention of the negative state is of importance to the consciousness in existence, as the experience of such a negative would be worse than the state in which they do not experience such negative. These two things are the part that is symmetrical in the fact that both the attainment of the positive and the prevention of the negative would be important. Keep in mind, however, that they are important in different ways. One is important to the creation of the positive, meaning it looks to add something new for the sake of the person. The other is important to the prevention of the negative, meaning it looks to avoid a future state for the sake of a person. These differences between adding positive and avoiding negative actually cause an asymmetry when we talk about such in the context of non-existence. While in non-existence, meaning no conscious configurations exist, there is nothing that is deprived of the positive experience. There is nothing that wants, needs, or desires coming into existence for the great experiences life has to offer. The creation of these things are not for the sake of something that doesn't seek them. There is no need to add a positive. As such, a positive is only of value once in existence, not while in a state of non-existence. On the other hand, the prevention of the negative experience, though not a concern of the non-existent, is still better than not preventing such. In other words, the creation of a negative is not wanted, but more than this, it would certainly be worse from a state that does not contain any valuability. The addition of the negative is the creation of a negative from a state that cannot experience such. So if the creation of the negative is worse, why then isn't the creation of the positive better? The asymmetrical difference here is that the creation of a valuer is not something of value to the non-existent for the sake of a positive or negative attainment. But the prevention of a valuer is important because it addresses the prevention of a future state in which the valuer does exist. Whereas creation of such is of no worth for something that holds no value, the prevention of such is of worth in the sense that it prevents the no value state from coming into a value state. To put this in context of a thought experiment, there's no ethical importance to creating clones that will experience bliss for a week and die a painless and suffering-less death. But there is much ethical importance to not create a clone that will suffer the worst pain and suffering possible for a week and then die a horrible death. There is no non-existent clones that values coming into existence to experience bliss, but there will be a clone that is harmed greatly if one comes into existence to suffer. This makes the attainment of such bliss never worth the creation of a negative, no matter how small the negative is. The bringing in of unnecessary positive value at the expense of unnecessary negative value is the bringing in of unnecessary negative value, period.